tried my hand against a Roman popery.
And they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
We're on a mission from God.
Entitled, you want answers!
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
Maybe we should chug on over to Mamby-Pamby land, where maybe we can find some self-confidence for you, you jackwagon!
Coming to you live from his padded cell high atop Bethel Church, the most heralded, the most despised talk show in all of human history. This is the talk show hell hates. This is Pastor Mike Online.
And here we are, coming to you live from our top secret broadcasting bunker here at Area 52. This is Pastor Mike, and I'm online and live with you today. Thank you very much for all of your prayers for me. Just briefly, Monday night, I didn't sleep a wink, not for a minute. And then part of that was because my lower extremities, the ankles, my calves, I have real high arches in my feet, about like that, and all of it was cramping real bad. That's what I deal with just about every night. And we've tried all kinds of remedies, Gatorade every night, magnesium every night, you name it. We've drank it, rubbed it, stuffed it. We did everything with it. And I noticed last night is part of the nerve messed up system that I have is I noticed that when I first get that command from my brain that says sleep, and I just start going into whatever brain state you go into when you go to sleep, that my body will go, and sometimes that hard. And it's not like I have the dream where you're falling over the cliff instantly. It's a nerve response, apparently related to when my brain says sleep. I jerk. And last night, when I jerked, it triggered the spasms in I think it was my left leg last night. I had to stand up, walk around, and sometimes it takes more than just a few seconds to get those muscles unlocked. And that's every night usually. Not 100% every night, but usually every night. And so Monday night, no sleep, and then my legs were just constantly cramping, even during the day Tuesday. So we had a real sweet wedding here at the church. Our Canadian friends from Quebec, Ontario. They came down, wanted to be married, and we joined them together in holy matrimony, and had a good time visiting with them and so on. And after I did that, I thought, man, I am beat. And then, so I laid down in my couch in my office, and sure enough, my legs started back in the cramping again. So I thought, man, I can't do it today. So anyway, glad to be with you today. And as I was listening along in the Watchman broadcast I was playing, prior to me coming out here, I was looking at these two characters here, called the majority text, from and what I was saying. Receptus comes from which the New Testament of the King James was translated from. So you got the King James on one side. Brooks, let me back that up here to their picture. Brooks, Westcott, F.J.A. Hort. Yeah. So anyway, these two guys probably single-handedly have literally destroyed much of what would have been conservative, Bible-believing Christianity. These two guys right here. When I get to heaven, I'm going to ask God for the videotapes of what he said to these two men when he judged them. And, well, I don't know. But those two guys did it, all right? They're the ones responsible. I've got a topic I'm going to present to you today. It's in the form of a Happy Meal box. I'll show you that in a minute. However, let's see here. Let me get out of that. This, I was excited about this. As you know, we go to Delphi, Indiana in October. We have some followers out there, and it's not a big meeting, but we enjoy it. I like to go in the fall, and just when the leaves are perfect. And Indiana, during that time, is known for, the state of Indiana has a lot of covered bridges, the old-style bridges that, were all over the American landscape years ago. Well, Indiana still has a lot of those left. There's one in Jefferson County, I'd say about 8 or 9 miles from my house, but I think there's only one in Jefferson County here. But Indiana has them all over the place. And so in October, when everybody around the country, every community is celebrating some form of Oktoberfest. The state of Indiana does it centered around these covered bridges. And you can go to just about any town, especially small towns in Indiana, and go to their Covered Bridge Festival, and man, you're going to see everything out there. So we like to go. But we became aware of, and a good friend of ours, Sister Tracy, who lives there in Delphi, or nearby Delphi, she took us to the place where these two young ladies who had done nothing wrong as far as provoking what happened to them. Libby German and Abby Williams from Delphi in 2017. First they were missing, then they were found, but both of them found dead. The two girls were very, very close friends. They were, where one went, the other went. They did sleepovers at each other's house, so on and so on and so on. And there is a park connected to Delphi that is, I think if I remember right, it's the area where an old train track is. It still exists today. And there is this bridge going over this little river there near Delphi. And what is that, the Wabash? But anyway, they were out there, and this man took them. And he didn't know that one of the girls had her cell phone out because they saw this guy following them. And she had her cell phone out, and the police released just a very short video of a man with sort of a goatee beard and a cap on, not like a baseball hat, but a cap. You know what I'm talking about? And a blue jacket, something like that. And he's following these girls, and he's telling them, get down the hill. And they have just a brief video of the man telling them to do this. So they had a pretty good indication of how tall he was, how much he weighed, so on and so on and so on. Well, it made news all over the country, then all over the world. These two girls that were killed. The town of Delphi really rallied around, and that whole community. It's a big farming community. There's a lot of what they call German Baptists out there. They're not Mennonites. They're not Amish. They are German Baptists. And I would say they're more in line with regular Baptist doctrine than even the Mennonites and the Amish are. But anyway, they live that simple life and so on. And so there's just a lot of community out there, and everybody knows everybody, and everybody watches out for everybody. And they're like, we're going to find this guy. If he's still around, we're going to find this guy. Well, they found him. And they arrested him, and they had a ton of evidence against him. And you figure, okay, they'll go to trial. They'll try to get a conviction against him for first-degree capital murder. Yes, there is a death penalty in Indiana. And I think they ought to use it. My personal opinion is do not accept a plea offer from, what's his name? Richard Allen. Let me put his nasty, illegitimate face up on the screen. Do not accept a plea offer from him, because what that is, a plea offer is a pleading from someone accused of an offense who is, get this now, begging for mercy, begging for leniency, something of which we are almost 100% certain that these two girls probably at some point would have begged this man not to kill them. But kill them he did. And I'm not speaking in conjectures. I'm not speaking, they got a man, but he may not be the right guy. They may have just settled on a guy just to clear the case and to look good in the news. No, they got him. They got him. The latest that's come out about him, the special judge overseeing the Delphi double murder trial is unsealing over 100 court documents. This comes as a 50-year-old Richard Allen is accused of murdering Abby Williams and Libby German in 2017. The documents reveal the girls' cause of death publicly for the first time, saying their deaths were due to wounds caused by a sharp object. In other words, they were stabbed to death. The court documents also allege Richard Allen has confessed multiple times during phone calls made from Westville Correctional Facility where he is currently being housed. And he did. His wife, he would be in communication with his wife, and I'm just imagining, just from what I heard yesterday, that his wife is like, honey, just tell me you didn't do it. Tell me you didn't do it, and I'll believe it. So apparently all this time he's going, honey, I didn't have anything to do with this. I promise I didn't have nothing to do with this. Well, apparently he's having a phone conversation with his wife, and he says, what the hey, I'm going to tell her. Now, you understand that when you're in prison, there's big signs everywhere next to the phones that say, Do not say anything that will incriminate you. You have a right to remain silent. We advise you to use that right to remain silent. Because anything you say on these telephones is recorded and transcribed, and we will use it against you in a court of law. So apparently he told his wife that he killed both of those girls. Apparently he told her that. And the story that we heard yesterday on a from a news source that was posted, I think, on Facebook, the phone call ended abruptly, which probably means the wife of this guy, poor lady, cursed him like a dog and slammed the phone down. Now, I may be embellishing that some, but that's what it looks like to me. Anyway, I think they've got this guy dead to rights, and as of this point, it is not a question now of who done it. It's not a question of did we have the right man. We have the right man, or they have the right man. They've spent a lot of time and a lot of effort putting this case together. They're still building a case against him, and the evidence seems overwhelming. One of the things that I would absolutely hate to happen is for the prosecuting attorney, and in this case, the people have a voice. And if you were to ask the people of Delphi, Indiana, and its surrounding neighbors, should this man get the death penalty for what he did, I guarantee you're going to get an overwhelming majority that says yes, put a needle under his skin. Is that biblical? What about Jesus, who said, you know, you've heard it read, an eye for an eye, a tooth for tooth, but I say unto you. But did you know that if Jesus was against the death penalty, then we would not need a Savior, nor would we even need salvation for that matter. Because if God in the flesh, Jesus, was against capital punishment, if he was against handing out a sentence of death to those who are worthy of death, Jesus never denied that. God in the flesh, as Jesus Christ, never one time condemned that idea. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Now, you can say what you want to. Well, it's been proven that capital punishment really isn't a diversion to crime. Well, let me tell you, it'll be a diversion for him. It'll be a guarantee that Richard Allen will never, ever, ever, ever commit this crime ever again. So you can come up with all the statistics that you want to. The truth of it is, the truth is truth, and the law is law, and justice is justice. And to allow this man to plead and beg mercy for his life, when the truth of it is, he did not hear the pleas and the begs from these two, what were they, 12, 13 years old, something like that, girls who were obviously crying their eyes out, begging this man not to kill them. And he doesn't kill them like, 10 feet away from a distance by shooting them. No, he gets right down with them and stabs them to death. I'm being honest, my prayer for him is that God sends someone to minister to him, show him the grace of God and the love of God so that he can be saved. Even if he becomes a born-again Bible believer, that does not exonerate him from his earthly responsibilities under the law. He has a debt to pay to society, and I think that the people of Delphi, if you were to ask them, they would absolutely say, give him the death penalty. Don't let him plead down to life in prison without parole. That just means instead of him being a threat to public safety out on the street, now he's a burden to the public, to the working man, and the people who pay taxes every year, who have to pay for the jail cells and pay for the guards and pay for the meals and pay for everything else that they do and get in the course of their lifetime in prison. They're a burden to the American people. And I just don't think that is right. Now, we'll move away from that. We were coming back from camp last week. We always like to stop there. There's a little McDonald's in Ozark, Missouri. And we stopped there, and my two grandsons ordered a Happy Meal. I always like to get an angry meal. What it is, it's an old stale cheeseburger that's been sitting out for hours and hours and hours, and it's hard and it's crusty, and it comes with fries that somebody dug out of their seat of their car. You know how French fries get stuck down in there, you eat them in the car. They dug them out of that and put it in there. That's an angry meal. But they got a Happy Meal. And as soon as I saw it, I went, uh-oh. I'm going to put that up there. That's the Happy Meal box. Now, if you don't know what that is, this is what I'm going to show you today. When I was explaining this to my daughter-in-law, Paige, my girls have told me, Dad, we can't watch a movie anymore normally. Because every time we do, we're counting things in there, or we're seeing symbols in there, or whatever. They said, we can't do it anymore, thanks to Dad. Well, you're welcome, children. Glad I could help. I was explaining this to her. And I said, let me tell you what, just a glance. That's all I took was a glance. And I said, it's about what the ancients referred to as the building blocks of the universe. The four elements of earth, wind, fire, and water. And I said the people in ancient times believed that everything in the universe was made up of a combination of these four things: earth, air, fire, and water. And I said, when I saw the name elemental, and I saw the two characters there, one of them is fire, and the other one is water. Well, believe it or not, the actual storyline, this is from a Disney movie. And you can read the storyline, you can read the synopsis on Wikipedia. But basically, the whole theme of the movie is that fire and water want to get married. I'm not making this up. They want to join together. Now, this may be impossible, you say, because fire and water are opposites, yes? So is earth and wind. Earth remains stable, static. It doesn't move. Wind blows all over the place. And so, and in the idea of as I'm trying to get ahead of myself, because I'm going to show you from a witch's point of view what elemental Wicca is all about. Wicca is a word for witchcraft. Wicca and the word whist and the word wizard and the word wise are all related. If you were a wise man or a sage of some kind back in the biblical days, if you were a person who the king would use as a counselor, you might be called a counselor. You might be called a wise man. You also might be called a wizard, because whiz sounds a little bit like whist, which is what Jesus said when Mary and Joseph went looking for him. Jesus said, "Wist ye not that I must be about my Father's business?" Wist means, didn't you know? Wist ye not? Did you not understand that I must be about my Father's business? So whist and Wicca and wizard and wise are all basically the same meaning. So Wicca means to know. They believe that they have a secret knowledge that no one else has, and they have the ability, by means of the four elements of Wicca, the four base elements, earth, air, fire, and water, they believe that their power derives from those four sources of earth, air, fire, and water. And they say that when witches come together, or let's say a single witch who is going to come and she's going to cast a circle, a satanic Wiccan circle. Sometimes it'll have a star in it, which is a pentagram. And that's who they worship, by the way. That's their goddess. And they will kneel down inside of this circle with a pentagram on it. Sometimes they may put candles on the points where the stars of the pentagram, or the pentacle, they call it, meet the edges of the circle. But they'll kneel down in that spot. Because what they want is, they want earth and air to unite together in them. They want fire and water. They want fire and water to join together to give them power in them joining together. So we have earth and air getting married, fire and water getting married, and when they all four are joined together and you have that power in you, well then now we're going to add something else. Wait till you find out what it is. I went through some old notes to find these goodies here. Did you know that the idea of elements was mentioned in the King James Bible? Why, yes, it was. Let me put that up on the screen for you, and you will see what I see. Paul said in Galatians 4, even so when we were children, we're in bondage under the elements of the world. Think about what that means. We're in bondage to the elements of the world. But when the fullness of the time was come, God sent forth his Son, made of a woman. And now, so let me ask you a question. How many of these elements are there? Earth, air, fire, and water. When in the Bible did Jesus come being made of a woman made under the law? What books of the Bible. 4 of them, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So you're seeing right here that those two are in opposition to each other. That the gospel hates the elements, and the elements hate the gospel. They don't want anything to do with it, because the gospel has the power to destroy all the forces of evil represented by earth, air, fire, and water. So Paul is saying, when we were children, we're in bondage under the elements of the world, but when the fullness of the time was come, God sent forth his Son, made of a woman, made under the law, to redeem them that were under the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons. So what Paul is saying here is that God has given power through the cross, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, so that all of us could be made sons of God by the adoption of God. He brought us in. We are grafted in as the wild olive branch, he said in Romans chapter 11, I believe. And so that's power, my friends. Well, let's just say that when Satan said, I will be like the Most High, he meant it. His plan has always been to interject an alternative gospel. It's a gospel that's going to look similar to the Christian gospel. It's going to have some of the same ideas and same concepts that are in the gospel. It will pretend to give the same abilities that the gospel gives us, namely immortality and everlasting life. So when Paul said this, he then says in verse 8, howbeit then, when you knew not God, in other words, before you were saved, you did service unto them which by nature are no gods. But now, after that ye have known God, or rather are known of God, how turn ye again unto the weak and beggarly elements? Notice how the Holy Spirit through Paul is describing the elements. Because in Wicca, in elemental witchcraft, there is no greater power anywhere in the universe than the powers of earth, air, fire, and water. According to witches, that is the highest of all powers. Okay? But Paul's saying here, it's weak and beggarly. It means it has no power. It has no strength on its own. It cannot move itself about on its own. When I think of beggarly, I think of what my mom used to warn me about when I went in the woods. She said, don't come back with your pants full of beggar lice. Now, beggar lice is not really a lice. It's a seed that is coated and covered with all these tiny little, like Velcro barbs. And they're meant to attach to animal fur. They're meant to attach to human clothes or whatever. And when you run through a patch of them, you get all done, you turn around, look down at your pants, and you've got probably 300 beggar lice sitting on your pants. That's because they don't know nor have any other mechanism of moving around and planting their seed in some other place other than to attach themselves to things that do move around in the forest. And that's how beggar lice is spread all throughout a forest, is that it just hitches a ride. Well, you would think now, just kind of walk with me here for a minute. You would think that if one of these elements had so much power in it, you would think then that it has the ability to move itself around and being made known by people, but it doesn't have that ability. So Paul says here, how turn ye again to the weak and beggarly elements, whereunto ye desire again to be in bondage? In other words, you just came out of bondage. You came out of that. Why would you want to go back in? Why would you want to believe, and here's what he's going to say, whereunto ye desire again to be in bondage, ye observe, let's count them, days and months and times and years. Okay? You observe those days because you think, you were told that on certain of these days, the veil between us and the other world is thinnest, and that's where you and I can transport ourselves into the world of spirits. And also it's the way that spirits are allowed to enter into this world. And I'll be honest, and by the way, with most cultures, it is October 31st. Does that ring a bell? Okay. So anyway, the observation of times in believing that on certain days God could be reached better, or God is reached easier, or God, it's like every Wednesday in the Vatican, the Pope will come out into the papal audience hall that looks like a serpent's head. I'm not kidding you. It does. It's a serpent's mouth and head. Good grief. I can't believe this. But anyway, he's sitting there in the seat of God, showing himself that he is God, basically. But he's sitting there and he comes up with some topic and he throws it out to the people to let them try to answer it. If they could do the research, fine, and so on. But other than that, the service is over with. But they believe that on Wednesday, when the Pope comes out, that's the day that is the most holy day. Or some high-ranking saint, when it's their saint's day, then on that particular saint's day that we'll have extra graces and protections given to us that we won't have on any other day. And people, it's a lie. And it's a lie that brings people into bondage, not gives them what they need right now. That's how big the lie is. And then Paul said, I'm afraid of you, lest I bestowed upon you labor in vain. And he said, if you observe days, months, and times and years, I just don't trust you anymore. Now, two more places. But in the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements, look at that, shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up. Same book, 2 verses later, looking for and hasting unto the coming of the day of God, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 times the word elements is used in the King James Bible. Is that an accident? Nah, no way. No way. Here they are in picture form. Or excuse me, here they are in picture form. Here's fire. Here's air. Here's agua, water. And this is in the shape of a house, so it's earth. Earth, air, fire, and water. It's seen in different ways depending on what time era you look at and what civilization you look at. In the Sumerian religious system, you had 4 primary gods: Anu, Ninhursag, Enlil, and Enki. They represent heaven, earth, air, and water. 4 deities representing the 4 elements. Here is a video game. 4 books of magic to unlock and study. Listen, here's what my daughter-in-law said. Who, and you understand, she didn't spend her whole life listening to Mike Hoggard videos. She didn't. She had kind of a rough past. Moved from foster home to foster home for a while and so on. And marrying my son Matthew has been the most stable thing she's ever done in her life. And we love her. We're glad that she's part of our family. But I was explaining this to her, and I said, I almost guarantee you there's going to be an app associated. Well, sure enough, there it is. And they want it interactive. Now, why? I just want to ask you a question. With everything that we know about mobile phones now, why does McDonald's need a game that you not only, let's see here, not only can you play this game without using your phone, but you are enhanced if you play this game on your phone. There's enhancements, there's rewards given. Now, knowing what we know about the collection of data with mobile phones, the moment that your child opens this up at McDonald's, I'm not going to say that going to McDonald's is evil. Are you kidding me? I'd never say that. I have to admit, I am a McDonald's cheeseburger fan. I love just a plain old McDonald's cheeseburger. Love it. Anyway, back to the news. When I was showing this to my daughter-in-law, how it worked and everything like that, and she looked at it and she said, well, I'll be. They're teaching kids all over the world how to practice witchcraft. And I went, you got it! It's what they're doing. Just like this game up on the screen here. Here, right here. Rescue the ancient kingdom to life. 4 books of magic to unlock and study. So this would be, look at the pictures here. Earth, air, fire, water. Isn't it something? So you got kids all over the world now. And instead of these kids, in days gone by, they might have gone to a Sunday school where they were taught Bible verses, Bible memorization. They were taught things about Jesus. And yet, now that has been taken away, this has replaced it. Kids got to have something to do, right? And since we won't let them play biblically based games or biblically based board games or whatever, since we won't let them play that, or because the world has pulled them out, or let's say other students have told them, man, you don't want to go for that. It's boring, man. And in fact, we're having a skate that night. Why don't you go skating with us or something like that? But they're teaching children how the very, very fundamentals and the rudiments of witchcraft, how it works. They're teaching them to do the deeds of witchcraft. There was something on here. I don't see it. Maybe it came in. There was a little book that came with this. And Parents, use your discretion. Grandparents, use your own discretion. You know your children, grandchildren better than I do. But if you really felt convicted to not introduce your child to the basic elements of witchcraft, so that your child now, by playing this harmless little game, let me get you a screen capture of, by playing this harmless little game on a cell phone. Again, when it comes to these mechanical or these electronic devices, who collects the most information? Do you? No, you don't. It's the phone company, the utilities company. What did I just say? Anyway, my brain is still tired. I've not caught up with my sleep yet because my legs keep cramping. I was up. I think I probably got 3 hours of sleep last night, so forgive me. But anyway, we're teaching children to practice witchcraft by playing these little games or by playing these little games. And I guarantee you, these little innocent games like this are nothing compared to the games that older teens and older adults can get a hold of, where literally you are participating in spell casting, in wizardry, in actually coming up with spells and so on to cast to opponents who you're playing against in these games. Teaching them the elements of witchcraft. Here's another way of looking at it. Satan, Babylon, beast, false prophet, air, earth, water, and fire. In Japan, I haven't shown you this part yet. You have the earth. Whenever you see somebody stacking stones somewhere, when we were at the Great Divide, I saw several places where people had done this. There's a reason why they're doing it. They're not just showing you, hey, look, I can balance rocks. There's a reason why they're doing it. They're showing you the 5 elements. There's one hidden elephant. Earth, water, fire, wind, and notice there's different words for it. Notice how the Japanese refer to it. Void. You know what that is in Sanskrit? Nirvana. Nirvana. It means the empty place. It means the place where there's nothing there. And here's what's interesting. When you have the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, and water, when those 4 have successfully united together, then a 5th element shows up. And that 5th element, in older times, if you go back to the early 1900s, late 1800s, and so on, that other element in the English-speaking word was called ether. And ether would join with the 4. Now, I just showed you Daniel chapter 2 just now in Nebuchadnezzar's dream, where he dreams of the 4 kingdoms, and the 4th kingdom, made of iron, supported by the toes and the feet. But the toes are of part iron and part clay. And then afterward it says, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. So let me explain it this way. Rather than saying earth, air, fire, and water, I'll say adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine. Make sense? The 4 base pairs joining together is what gives us life. And the goal of the devil's kingdom in these last days, the goal is for all the 4 here on this earth to join together so that the 5th element could descend from heaven and make them whole again. China, they had 4 gods: Komokuten, Xochitl, Temonten, Jikokuten. They're basically 4 devils, 4 spirits, 4 gods that represent the gods who stand at each of the 4 directions, north, south, east, and west. Native Americans or First Nations, they had a cross symbol hundreds of years before Christ ever died on the cross. They had a cross symbol. And it was hard, especially for some of them, to really assimilate into the white man's ways. Because white men, back then, all they did was conquer this, conquer that. We're going to present this to the glory of God. Okay? Now, if you are Indian or First Nations or whatever, don't be mad at me. I didn't do it. My dad didn't do it. My grandfather didn't do it. My great-grandfather didn't do it. As far as taking away Indian and First Nations land. But when when missionaries came forward and moved across the West, they saw that the Indians already had crosses that were part of their symbolism and part of the whatever you call it there on their totems. So it's something they were familiar with. This one always stuck out in my mind as being very swastika-like. Okay? Europe. Alchemy. Notice these 4 down here. My pen's not drawing right. Let's see here. This one is water. Let's see here. I don't know what all these are. I can't remember what these are a picture of. But basically, these 4 women represent earth, air, fire, and water. And there's only a slight difference between them. Notice that, let me get, let's see if it'll take these pen marks out of the way. No, it won't. But anyway, no, it won't take them out. But anyway, these 4 triangles represent the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, and water. It is upon which they stand. And you have these pictures on their heads. And I think, it's just a guess now on my part, if I were to read the language of symbols. Oh, I know what these are. I know what these are. right here is a man. This is an eagle. This is a lion. This would be an ox. Dun, dun, dun! That's the chariot of God in Ezekiel chapter 1. Are you kidding me? Now, notice these quotes. Witches use the energies around them to assist in raising power. These energies manifest as the elements, earth, air, fire, and water, and spirit. So, think about this now. Daniel 2. They shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. So here's the seed of men in the 4 base pairs. Adenine, guanine, thymine, cytosine. And if I were to take it to a logic conclusion, you'd join 2 of them together. But that's your 4 elements. Earth, air, fire, and water. Because adenine and thymine are opposites. Guanine and cytosine are opposites in that they fit together. Just like Isaiah says, seek ye out the book of the Lord and read. No one of these shall fail. None shall want her mate. So these go together, these go together. It's like the 4 Gospels joined together. 2 of the Gospel stories has the birth of Christ recorded in it. 2 of them don't. You ever think about that? They are related to earth, air, fire, and water. They're related to, I won't say they're related, they're the opposite of those things. But the witch's power coming from the 4 elements is not, it's the exact same thing as what George Lucas came up with when he envisioned the Force. And I had guys in Bible college that I was friends with them. We used to do a lot of things together. We had a lot of things in common. But these guys played fantasy role-playing games. Dungeons and Dragons was one of them. And I didn't know then what I know now. But when I kept hearing about earth, air, fire, and water from these guys, I'm going, that just don't sound right to me. In some cases, they would act out the parts of wizards, including the casting of spells written out for them. And I just couldn't bide that. I could not go along with that at all. Anyway, that's where they get their power. And these same guys on campus are all the time talking about the Force, the Force, the Force. George Lucas's The Force, remember, comes from everything in the universe. He said it's what binds everything together. Now that is a heresy. Because the Bible specifically says that by Christ all things were made and all things consist or are held together. It's not some unseen force with a good side to the force and a dark side to the force. With God, God is light, and in him is no darkness at all, the Bible says. And yet they want us to believe that the 4 elements truly represent the grace of God and the 4 Gospels and on and on and on. And they equate it to the force. And I'm telling you people, the force is not of God. It's the same force that these Wiccans use. Here's another one. The 4 elements of nature, earth, air, water, and fire, from the foundation of natural magic. The elements are associated with the cardinal points of the magic circle. Cardinal points would be north, south, east, and west. What is it that is mandatory for every Roman Catholic to do the moment they set foot in the holy, sacred womb of the Mother Church. When a Catholic goes to church, whenever they go, what's the first thing they do when they walk in the door? Dip in the holy water, and they make the sign. Earth, air, fire, water. That's what they're doing. Oh, you thought they were making the sign of the cross. No. It's not why they're doing it. And there is no scripture anywhere that tells us as believers that we must cross ourselves when we meet somebody who is like a priest or somebody, or we go into the church or whatever it is. We cross ourselves. Or when somebody dies and it's a tragic accident. Oh, the people died everywhere. And people take their hats off and they go. That's superstition. That's fables. It's made up. Anyway, the elements are associated with the cardinal points of the magic circle and with a hierarchy of spirits, beings called elementals. You remember what elementals are? The Mithraic mysteries hold that man must rule the elements before he can attain spiritual wisdom. Accordingly, he must successfully undergo the initiations of earth, air, water, and fire, each of which test a different aspect of his nature and being. From the Encyclopedia of Witches, Witchcraft, and Wicca. Remember, all those words mean wise something. Okay? Wiccans use this force as the force of all their magic. Earth, air, fire, and water. And spirit, then, once earth, air, fire, and water join together. Think about it. Think about it. Once the 4 Gospels were completed, Matthew's Gospel, Mark's Gospel, Luke's Gospel, John's Gospel, what happened? When the gospel of Jesus Christ coming down to this earth, then going to the lower parts of the earth, setting captivity free, meeting with them in paradise, and then coming back here to earth. It was after that Peter and all the other disciples then received what? The Spirit. So you have the 4 Gospels. Once the work of the 4 Gospels is complete, Christ ascends up into heaven, and now we have the Spirit of God upon us who are saved by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So now you flip this, and I don't know if I said it quite right earlier, but when you flip this upside down now, the idea is that you have earth, air, fire, and water. And when those have successfully joined together, the ether comes down and mingles itself with it. And what is the ether? I don't think I explained this a while ago. The ether is the heavens. That's what they were referred to for years, hundreds of years. The ether was the place where they assumed that nothing existed in those void spaces between planets and stars. So now the theory is they have dark water and so on, but before the idea of dark water, They believed that there was this huge expanse and a void place between each star. And it's that they referred to as the void or the ether that came down from heaven to bless the four elements of earth, air, fire, and water, and thus joining with them. So that man, just like the devil promised Eve in Genesis chapter 3, so that man really could become a God knowing good and evil, and that he would not surely die. That's the words that Satan promised, and I believe that he had, I wouldn't say all of it, but I would say a good portion of how he was going to work in this world already laid out. How he was going to deceive people already set up. And he sets up the four elements basically as a replacement to the four Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The five elements are earth, air, water, fire, and spirit. So whether it's called ether, and it represents all of the, we'll call them angelic beings, but they're evil angels. The five elements are earth, air, water, fire, and spirit. In Wicca, each element is associated with a direction in the ritual circle. Earth's direction is north, and air is east, water is west, while fire is south. Spirit encompasses all directions because it surrounds and is part of everything. Now, I went online to the Wikipedia article about this movie. The plot of this movie is that there is a happy little city. Let's see if I can pull it up. I had it in my notes here. Yeah, elemental. The plot is fire elements, Bernie and Cinder. Get it? Bernie and Cinder. Lumen. Dun, dun, dun. I don't have my buttons anymore. My iPad has crashed. Their last name is Lumen. You know what that word means? Light bearer. The fire elements Bernie and Cinder Lumen immigrate to Element City where they face xenophobia. Oh no. This is one of those stupid Disney liberal movies where we have to cure man's biases. Liberals think that if you keep inundating mankind with enough of your message, that everybody's going to change. They're going to wake up one day and they're all going to change and just automatically love everybody and get rid of all biases whatsoever. And I'll just be honest with you. People who disagree with me on certain things are healthy for me. I don't need everybody to agree with everything I say. In fact, I don't think it's a good idea. I need to be challenged every now and then by people who, if they think I'm in some error some way, they can bring it to me and say, Pastor, let me sit down and talk to you for a while. And if it's true, then we're both benefited by that. But liberals, they think they've got to have a scenario by which you're going to be forced into obeying Big Brother's pronouncements. Do good to others, and you're part of the collective, and everything's going to be fine. Let me get back to this. They face xenophobia, which is a phobia of, how can I describe it? I just barely know the meaning of it. Xenophobia is, I think, you're afraid of people that are not your kind. So xenophobia basically, it assumes that everybody in the world is somewhat tribal and that we don't change tribes. We don't come out of what we were or what we are. But anyway, they moved to Element City. They struggle to find a home. They have a daughter, Ember, and eventually establish a convenience store called The Fireplace, setting up a blue flame that represents their heritage and traditions and attracting many fire element patrons over time. Bernie intends to give the store to Ember when he retires, but first, she must control her fiery temper. She's a redhead. When Bernie allows Ember to run the shop on her own, she becomes overwhelmed by the customers and rushes to the basement. Her fiery outburst breaks a water pipe, flooding the basement and summoning Wade Ripple. He's a water boy, okay? A water element and city inspector. Wade notes the faulty plumbing and reluctantly leaves for City Hall to send the violation report to his air element employer, Gale Cumulus, describing, the clouds, who will have the fireplace shut down. Either Ember pursues Wade, but it is too late. Aww. And you get a lot more of that when you read the synopsis of the movie or the plot of the movie. But the bottom line is that these two here, the fire girl and the water boy, end up getting married. They end up in an impossible state where they are joined together. Had they just read the Apostle Paul when he said, "Wherefore come out from among them, and be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you." And he said it in the context of, is there a concord? What concord is there between Christ and Belial? What agreement hath light with darkness? And the answer to all of them is no, none, zero. Never happened, not going to happen. But these two get married. I guess, what would their child be? Steam? I don't know. But my daughter-in-law was right in that it's teaching children the very basic points of witchcraft. As they learn this, when they are introduced to more advanced parts of witchcraft, they'll automatically know how to do it. And it's very, very possible that they will perform it. And let me say this. I'm sort of winding down the Vatican Secrets series. And something that occurred to me last week at camp is that basically every priest in every Catholic church who is participating in the celebration of the Mass of Christ, he himself is practicing witchcraft. Practicing witchcraft. Oh, no, they won't call it that. That's what it is. Whenever the priest has to say these certain words, and he has to do them consistently, he has to say them every time he holds a mass. He's not allowed to augment them. He's not allowed to change them. He's not allowed whatever. He is doing what he is told to do. And every time a priest performs the sacrifice of the Mass, especially by way of that shepherd's rod that he keeps with him, he's using that rod as sort of his magic wand, and he's changing what he believes the elements that are there on the table, the communion wafer and the wine. He believes that he has the power to transform them into wheat wafers like this, to the actual physical flesh of Jesus Christ. Not only do I think that's sick and disgusting, but I absolutely believe that it's witchcraft. No doubt in my mind about it. I'm going to have to go now. What time is it? Yeah. I wanted to join and make the connection today between the four elements. Let's see if I can do something here real quick. Just something to get you thinking. The four elements and, are you ready? This. Dun, dun, dun. 1, 2, 3, 4 base pairs joined together. Adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine. Okay? But I don't have the time and my brain is tired. But it's good to be with you today. And I have one more Watchman broadcast, I think, coming up. And I think it will finish out the Vatican Secret Series. So be watching for that in the next few days if I can get it done. All right? God bless you. You're the reason why we do what we do. It's good to be with you today. Thank you for your prayers and your love. Thank you for your prayers and bringing Michael home. I'm going to go see him. I got a meeting with him. I love you. God bless you. We'll see you.